Welcome back to Learn Python for Economic Computation. We are going to go through the last section of Chapter 2, lists, and more lists. We're going to learn about some methods that are going to help us out, or you can say functions that are going to help us out when we're working with lists. And then we're going to learn how to create a list as a generator function, which is actually one of my preferred ways to create a list. Okay, so let's create a new list, list 1. So let's find out what the min value is. Let's call this min val equals min list 1. And we'll have our max val. Then we're going to print maximum max list value, minimum min list, oh, not value, just min val. So max val, min val. There we go. Okay. Run it, and you can see here it automatically figured out that the max val is 50 and the min val is 20. Okay. Now I could at some point teach you how to create a function that does this. You can actually identify the kind of function that would identify the min or the max. But this is useful to be able to use. I use the min and max val very often, especially when I'm plotting. I use min and max val because sometimes you're plotting over time, especially if you're creating like a visualization that's dynamic, that changes over time. You want to know what the maximum value is going to be so that you can start out with your plot area the right size. Otherwise, the plot size will change as larger values are introduced to the program. Okay, so min and max is good to keep track of, good to be using. Okay, now let's actually figure out how we would use for loops to figure out minimum and maximum value. We're not going to quite create a function, but if you take this logic and apply it in light of the next chapter when we work with functions, you could create your own min and max function, as I was saying. Okay. So this time we're going to start out, we're going to say min val equals a very large number, infinity. Max val equals a very small number, negative infinity. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe in infinity, this is really useful for us here. Now, for x in list 1, what we're going to say is we're going to look at the values in the list, and we're going to say, is the value less than the smallest value? Or is the value greater than the largest value? Okay, and we're going to ask that for every number in the list, and then we'll figure out what the minimum and what the maximum values are. Okay, so if x is less than the minimum value, if x is greater than the max val, then it is the max val. Max val equals x. Okay. You know, just for understanding what's going on with this, I'm going to go ahead and create the min val. I'm going to print the min val and the max val. Okay. And when I run it, you're going to see how it's changing over time. Okay, and you can see here, the min val starts out at 20 and it remains 20 because it is the min val. The max val starts out at 20, but then we see 30 is greater than it, 40, and then 50. Ultimately, we end up with 50. Okay. Now, to be useful, this function, probably we're not going to want to print that every time, so I'm going to go ahead and erase those. And just at the very end, print max val, min val. Okay? You can see here 50 and 20 is our max and min. So we printed up top. We used min and max to figure this out, but then we created our own program that identified the min and max values. So you're capable of building something on your own to do that. Okay. Last thing we're going to do is create a list with a generator function, and then that's it for this chapter. So what's a generator function? Well, generator looks like this. In parentheses or in brackets, you're going to say I for I in range, okay? And what this is going to do is it's going to include an I for every I in range, let's say 20, okay? But the thing is if you print the generator, you're not going to see that. So let's print the generator here. You can see you just have this generator object. So that's not especially interesting. I'm going to work a little bit ahead for a second to kind of give you an idea about what this is doing. A lot of times it makes more sense to create a generator within brackets, which is going to make it a list. And if I did that, then when I print the generator, I actually get a list, you can see here. Okay. Now that's working a little bit ahead. Let's put parentheses back around this. Okay. And now instead of printing generator, we can print generator here. And then after we print generator, we're going to make list1 equals list generator. Okay. And then we're going to print list1. What you're going to find is the generator that we just used pass to list turns into a list that looks like what you would expect with a generator function, right? So if I said count by 2's here, 0, 20, 2, you get the same sort of output as you'd expect from what we dealt with earlier. Okay. Notice I could, instead of changing the range values, I could say I equals, we're going to enter I squared for every I. And so you see here now the values are all the squares of 0, square of 0, square of 1, square of 2, square of 3, and so forth. Okay? All the way up to 17. Is that right? No, all the way up to 19. Okay. List 2. So the second way to create a generator function or a list from a generator is just to do what I showed you with the list before. So we can create some formula. 2 plus I times 3. Notice this looks a lot like your standard algebra equation. So like maybe we're trying to find y equals 2 plus I times 3 across some range for I in range 100. Okay, we run it and let's print it. And you can see here, here's all the values, okay? And so notice this is actually pretty cool because you can equate a quadratic or really any equation that you'd like to see. So what if I said minus x squared, or sorry, minus I squared? Okay. Let's make this a bit larger. Let's make it times 30. Okay. You can see here, now basically we're tracing out the curve. Okay. These are all the y values if y equaled this thing here. So generators are pretty convenient for creating your own data. Oftentimes, like when I am trying to plot lines, I'll create the line. Here's my equation in the generator, and then I'll plot the list that results. And it's pretty convenient method for when you're dealing with maybe problems for your math classes. So keep that in mind. And as we go through working with more data, you're going to find generators are very useful, and I will certainly be using them as we move forward in the lessons. Okay, so that's it. Congratulations, you're done with Chapter 2, and you know a heck of a lot about programming already. We've almost learned all the components that we need to know to really move into data analysis. Okay, see you next time.